Most individuals would be irreparably broken by the heartbreaks that Jennifer Hudson has experienced. Nevertheless, she continued to rise. She continued to smile. Despite the sadness, she continued to sing. She is a survivor in the eyes of everyone. However, what occurs if a survivor regains trust? Furthermore, the story's conclusion is unexpected, because it seemed like the love Jennifer Hudson had always earned when she let her guard down for the man who spoke like a poet and handled himself like a healer. Supporters thought so. She thought so. It wasn't a fairy tale, though. It served as a test. A tale about recurring themes, fears, and the kind of quiet that speaks more than words ever could. Jennifer Hudson had already seen unimaginable pain in her life before Common, before red carpets and headlines. Her world fell apart in the most terrible way possible in 2008. In a single terrible tragedy that stunned the globe, she lost her mother, brother, and young nephew. Jennifer disappeared from the public eye for months. Furthermore, since it's difficult to rebuild after that, nobody would have blamed her if she had never returned. However, Jennifer took the unimaginable action. She came back. Once more, she sung. She did it once more. She confronted the world because she had no other choice but to survive, not because she had recovered. She was changed by her sadness. She was not erased, though. She turned grief into power. Additionally, she was more than just a singer or actor when people saw her. They witnessed resilience in action. It's one thing to endure grief, though. Another is finding safe love, which is where her narrative becomes even more complex. However, tranquility is not assured by surviving, and Jennifer's quest for love would soon bring her into yet another tidal upheaval. Jennifer seems to have at last achieved stability for a while. She got engaged to David Otunga, a former WWE wrestler. Together, they have a son. It appeared to be a loving, stable family from the outside. But behind the scenes, the picture wasn't so ideal. Later on, Jennifer disclosed that things weren't as they appeared. She charged Otunga with directing behavior and manipulating emotions. She claimed that he was easily envious, that he attempted to dominate her life, and that his behavior made her feel insecure. She filed for a protective order, something no woman does lightly because it got so bad. Although Otunga refuted the accusations and was ultimately exonerated, Jennifer's faith had already been eroded. Even while she appeared for her career and smiled for the cameras, she had endured yet another private trauma. The scars were genuine even though Jennifer couldn't see them. By the time she left Otunga, she was carrying more than just sorrow. She had a protective heart. People weren't merely interested when rumors circulated that she and Common were more than simply co-stars. They had hope. She hoped that perhaps, just possibly, love would offer her serenity this time. Silently, almost too silently, it began. While working on the movie Breathe, Jennifer and Common got to know one another. It was hard to overlook the chemistry on the set. Soft smiles, playful banter, and looks that spoke more than just words. When they began going out together, it didn't seem like a publicity gimmick. It was not another clumsy Hollywood romance. Something was different. Jennifer wasn't being ostentatious. She wasn't posting love on Instagram only to get likes. She was just content. She smiled with Common in a soft, almost bashful manner, as if she had been relearning to trust after years of heartache. The fact that they looked nice together wasn't the only reason why fans supported them. In general, they were cheering because it seemed like Jennifer had at last found safety. He was a fantastic fit for the part. In interviews, he discussed growth, partnerships, and blessings. According to him, Jennifer pushed him to improve and saw him in ways that he didn't always see in himself. That kind of validation wasn't only romantic to Jennifer. It was restorative. Common gave her the impression that she may finally be able to breathe after everything she had endured. But smiles alone are never enough to write a love story. Additionally, the man who appeared to be Jennifer's refuge was carrying his own past. A past that left the globe with more questions than solutions. The dream is Common. He is more than a rapper. He is a rapper who is mindful. He practices meditation. He is a therapist. He publicly supports women. He presents himself as a mature man. However, it is difficult to overlook the pattern when it comes to love. Ava DuVernay, Tiffany Haddish, Angela Rye, Erykah Badu, Taraji P. Henson, and Serena Williams. They came into his life one by one. Women who are intelligent, attractive, and strong. And they departed one by one. Always quiet, always portrayed as mutual, always with ambiguous statements. People questioned what keeps happening. For years. Why does Common, who talks so passionately about love, continue to avoid it? Then came the interview that stopped many in their tracks. Common said that he battled a condition he dubbed love addiction. It's an addiction to the initial rush of relationships rather than to closeness or physical contact. The excitement of being loved, the passion, and the butterflies. But every time the novelty wore off, he checked out. He indicated he wanted to change, that treatment was helping, and that he was working on it. Perhaps he meant all he said. However, interviews do not establish healing. It's demonstrated by the way you handle those who have complete faith in you. And that pattern was firmly established by the time Jennifer came into his life. The question then arose, was Jennifer the exception, or was she merely the next development in an unending cycle? Everything appeared picture perfect at first. Subtle affection, laughing, and red carpets. Fans quickly began to notice a change, though. Sightings become infrequent. At important events, Jennifer did not accompany him. Common began to show up by himself. Smiles that fell short of the eyes seemed to replace the effortless warmth that existed between them. The whispers followed. There were rumors that Common was being overly cordial with a new acquaintance. Rumors that he casually mentioned Jennifer's intensity, and that it wasn't always easy to be with her. Those statements struck a different chord with those who recalled the interviews in which he referred to her as a godsend. They sounded more like remoteness than admiration. The most significant rumor, however, was that Jennifer had rejected Common's proposal plans. Just a strong yet quiet no, without any drama or scene. Her hesitancy might have been the pivotal moment from which neither of them was able to recover. Jennifer Hudson is not a woman who hesitates because she doesn't care. The reason is that she has experienced too much to risk her peace. Consider it. She had already experienced the most terrible possible loss of her family. She had already been in a relationship that made her feel uncomfortable and in control. The burden of betrayal, sadness, and public heartbreak had already been placed upon her. Therefore, it was typical for a man who had a history of departing to request forever. Perhaps Jennifer's silence was a sign of wisdom rather than fear. Perhaps she realized she couldn't afford to repeat her history after looking at it. Perhaps, despite the world's expectation that she would say yes, she loved herself enough to say no. But with love, hesitancy can be risky. Jennifer's wait would have felt like rejection to someone like Common, who acknowledged that he has trouble after the honeymoon period ends. And all it took for the gaps to widen was rejection. Because goodbye isn't always the most dangerous word in love. There was no public outcry that followed. There were no awkward interviews or mysterious Instagram stories. There was quiet. Common and Jennifer just finished going together. Just absence, neither confirmation nor denial. Silence frequently speaks louder than words in Hollywood. Silence was dignity to Jennifer. She had no heartache to perform for a crowd, nothing to prove. Losing Common was nothing compared to what she had already endured. She had already survived worse. The quiet was more nuanced for Common. Some claim it was out of respect. Some claim it was a strategy. For how many times can you explain the silent disintegration of another forever? In any case, the end was inevitable. The once secure, solid love story ended abruptly and without warning. But there was more truth waiting to be discovered beneath that stillness. Jennifer Hudson was doing really well. She had a successful chat show, an enduring musical legacy, and a successful acting career. She exuded the vitality of a lady who had weathered the storm and was now at last striding in her own strength wherever she went. Common's star wasn't shining as brightly, but he wasn't failing either. He didn't have as many movie roles. His music had become more specialized. He was still revered, but he was no longer the center of attention. Insiders also claim that their relationship was subtly impacted by such imbalance. Jennifer was more than simply his partner. In the room, she was the more well-known name. It was she that brands desired. The one whose star was still rising, the one who the media chased. Being the plus one might have been more difficult for Common than he admitted, as he had established himself as the wise, evolved figure. Some sources hinted that he began to retreat, not out of rage, but out of insecurity, skipping her events, downplaying her victories, and grappling with the silent fact that Jennifer didn't require his attention. If she doesn't outgrow me, that is what men actually mean when they say they want a strong woman. Additionally, Jennifer Hudson had no intention of shrinking.